Hey there, spooky friends. Welcome to another episode of Storytime with the Scariest Podcast. I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we're here for Homegrown Horrors.
All right. So we're going to be doing this episode of Storytime number 199. Pretty excited for that. Usually Robin's like, Adam, what's a homegrown horror? Homegrown horrors are the wonderful stories that you have sent us via email, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. I think it's called X now or some shit. No one knows what Elon's doing anymore. But either way, it's a story that you had, a family member or friend that was okay to be sent to us and okay to be shared on the podcast. That's supernatural, paranormal, extraterrestrial, true crime, spiritual, or just coincidental in nature where you thought it was one of those things and turned out it was totally benign. Those ones are usually really funny. But yeah, they come from you, the wonderful listener, and we sincerely appreciate them. So pretty excited to be going back into a Storytime mode for the next couple weeks. We're doing this one, and then next week we're also going to have Storytime number 200, the big 200. So,
yeah,
hope you're excited for that too.
I can't believe we've done 200 of them.
I know. So
but I guess we might have said that about like doing 200 episodes of the normal topics too.
We definitely did.
Crazy.
I still can't believe we've gone through as many as we have. But let's get through Storytime number 199. Do you want to go first or should I?
I'll go. Nah, you go first.
Okay, cool. This first one's subject is, you can read this on the podcast, in parentheses, after typing this out. I want to add that this is sad, in parentheses.
No.
Uh-oh. Starting off with a sad one, but I guess it's better than ending with a sad one.
Yeah.
So, here we go.
But what if it does end with a sad one? We just don't know yet.
Yeah, I will say, Spooky Mom has proofread these, and she didn't give me any feedback on them, which usually means they're good. So, hopefully they won't shatter our hearts and they're not all sad, but let's see, okay? This first one starts out like this. Hey, Adam and Robin.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Shandon. Hello, Shandon. I posted the picture about spring break from Utah in the Discord and talked about how it's a great time to binge some episodes, and they've made me want to talk about a, quote, helping hand. I don't know what else to call it. From the day my great-grandmother passed away. Just a little background on my great-grandma. She was probably the number one person that wanted me to be successful in school, so she would always ask me about my grades whenever I saw her. Since I did the lawn care at her house from the age of about 8-ish until I was 18, I saw her every weekend. I would always listen to 21 Pilots when I did her lawn, so now whenever I listen to them, I think of her. It's funny because I totally had a playlist that I used to listen to on my iPod Touch back in the day when I used to cut my parents' lawn in college.
Yeah.
So anytime those songs come on, I'm just like, oh man, I feel like I'm on the riding mower all over again.
There's the album from Panic at the Disco that I bought when you were living in Arizona and I was driving back and forth, and I would just keep listening to that same album on that drive.
So just remind you of that road trip.
Yeah, that album, any song from that album reminds me of that.
Every time I hear Make Damn Sure or Ocean's Avenue, those two songs were definitely on my playlist when I used to cut the lawn. So every time I hear them, I'm just like, oh man, I'm in the Midwest. It's really hot and I'm sweaty and gross right now. So I totally empathize with this. Getting back to it. I'm 23 now, and finally decided to get a tattoo of the band as a way of remembering her, even though she was a devout member of the LDS church and would have beaten my ass if she saw I had tattoos now. That's funny, but I totally understand the tribute. Anyways, here's the story. It was my senior year in high school, and it was the week before I graduated. More specifically, 5 days before.
Oh, wow.
And me and my friends were doing what all good students do. We ditched class to go get food.
Okay.
Fuck yes, I love it. As we were deciding who was going to drive, I offered because I drove an early 2000s SUV, and there were only 5 of us, and it would be a comfortable ride. But for whatever reason that day, we decided to take 2 cars instead of 1, which I came to be very thankful for, which we've never taken 2 cars before in the past. So we get to the restaurant, and my friends are ordering. I get a call from my mom telling me that my great-grandma had fallen, and it was looking pretty bad. So I tell my friends I have to go before I order, and left, which I would not have been able to do if we only had 1 car. I was able to go. I'll say this, though. If that happened to me, same thing happened to me, I'd be like, guys, you're finding a fucking ride. I gotta go. Like, my great-grandma's hurt.
Yeah.
So, and I think they would have been fine with it and figured it out. But I understand why you're thankful that you didn't have to, put anyone in that position. But I will keep going. I was able to get back to my school and pull my brother out of class and head to the hospital. How I was not pulled over for going 90 and a 70, I attribute to that quote-unquote helping hand. By the time we got to the hospital, about 30 family members were already there, all kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. I was lucky enough to go into the room she was in and see her and be with her for her last few minutes of her life.
Oh, wow.
I consider myself a manly man, in parentheses, not really, LOL, But I only show my true emotions to a few people, but I've never cried harder before in my life than when I heard her take her last breath. Looking back at it now, there had to be some sort of helping hand. I don't know if it was my great-grandpa, in parentheses. He passed away when I was about 3, so I only have faint memories of him, letting me see her one last time, but if I had been held up for just a few minutes along the way, I would not have gotten to the hospital in time to see her and be with her. I'm not a religious person, and I am a skeptic for most things supernatural. In parentheses, insert Robin talking about the show, LOL. It's funny that you put that in there. I think it's too emotional of a moment for us to break in with a tangent, though. I truly felt that her spirit was there with me on my graduation day. Thanks for everything you guys do and for the community that has grown around you guys that lets people feel comfortable enough to share things like this with others.
I'm glad you felt comfortable enough to share that. I think when it does come to speeding sometimes, you shouldn't speed. But
she says that as a person who always speeds.
But when it's something important like this, I think, when I do speed, I always have that fear that I'm going to get pulled over, even if it's like 80,
I've definitely chilled out when it comes to speeding. Like, I used to speed all the time, but now that I'm older, I go like 8 to 9 over the speed limit, and then I put it on cruise control. Because I'm just like, there's no reason for me to rush because I don't have an emergency like that. And if I see someone rushing, I used to always assume they were just an asshole, like Robin. Nowadays, I just assume like, oh, they're having a bad day, they're late to work, or they're on their way to the hospital, or something like that. And I try not be that judgmental unless they're driving so recklessly that it could like cause an accident.
Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that helping hand thing too, because when my grandfather passed away, I was the last person to talk to him. My mom, my dad, myself, and my brother, we went into the hospital room, and he was like, he had a stroke and he collapsed in the street. They got him to the hospital. He was still very confused. He thought he was laying in the street, and he didn't understand why no one would pick him up. So we were trying to explain to him, you're in the hospital. And when I got to see him, everyone had been trying to convince him, like, you're in the hospital, you're in the hospital. And I didn't know what to say, so I was just like, hi, Grandpa. And my grandpa goes, hi, Adam. And that was the last thing he said. So, like,
are you for real?
Yeah, 100%. He went into a coma after that. He passed out, he went into a coma, and then a few days later he passed away. But I very distinctly remember, like, everyone trying to convince him he was in the hospital. I was like, he doesn't get it. Like, just say hi, like, let him know we're around him. But I remember being like really, really thankful that I got to say something to him before he passed away.
Were you like crying when you said it?
I was pretty numb. I was just like, what is happening right now? Like, I understood something was wrong. I had heard the word stroke before. Didn't know exactly what it was. But seeing him so confused, it was just like very jarring, so I wasn't like crying or anything. But eventually I did have like a complete breakdown. But yeah, it was a little bit different for me, but I understand that idea of like, if anything during that day had like prevented us from getting to that hospital, which was St. Catherine's, forever burned in my brain, it would have been completely different. I wouldn't have gotten to say anything to my grandfather before he passed away. And I think we were some of the last people to get there too, because we live so far away.
Wow.
So,
well, I'm glad you got to see your grandma before she passed away.
Indeed. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And if anyone has stories out there like that they would like to share, feel free to do so, because even though they are, emotional to read, we do read them. We get them often, and I think other people feel more comfortable sharing stories like that because of it. So thank you one more time, Shandon.
All right. So this next email that we have here is pretty darn long. And there's a bunch of stories within this email. So we're going to split it up. I'm going to read one of the stories. Adam's going to read the next two. Then I'm going to read the final story.
Yeah, and that's going to be the rest of the show.
Yes.
So after Robin's part, we're going to take our normal commercial break, come back. I'm going to read the middle part of this email, and then I'll pass it on to Robin. She'll read the last part of the email, and then we'll say thank you and good night.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Take it away.
All right. So, hello, Adam and Robin.
Hello.
And spooky friends.
Oh, shit. Everyone yell hello.
Hello. I heard about your show from my daughter. You may know her as Trash Panda 17,
What up,
which
Trash
we
Pandas?
do. I listen to you guys every day on my way to and from work. That's so sweet. I enjoy it all. I especially like hearing all of the Storytime episodes, mostly because I'm hoping to hear similar encounters to mine. Also, it's just cool to hear that Robin also grew up in Hawaii, where I was born and raised.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely grew up there, spent my entire childhood up until I was like 16 there. So yeah, definitely grew up there. I was encouraged by my daughter to share my childhood ghost encounters on the podcast, so here they are. Especially in Hawaii, there's a lot of stuff there. I think there's a lot of energy there. I definitely experienced more like night terrors and scary things happen to me in Hawaii than when I moved anywhere else.
Right.
So I think since we've moved here to California, I haven't had anything. Knock on wood. Hope
She
that's
just
real
knocked
wood.
on wood. I think that came through in the recording too.
But yeah, I think Hawaii has a lot of energy there.
For sure.
And maybe it's because you're surrounded by water. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was encouraged by my daughter to share my childhood ghost encounters on the podcast, so here they are. There are a lot of them, but not all of them. Sorry if this ends up being really long. Feel free to break these up, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for sharing.
And we're doing that too.
A little bit of background for the setting. Our house is in the mountains on Oahu.
Can you describe Oahu to those of us
That's
who are
where
not?
Honolulu is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. There is a valley it's the main city.
Okay, I don't know. I know of Hawaii and Honolulu, and then I know that you're from Maui.
There's a valley in the back of the house. My house had a valley in the back of it, too.
That's cool.
Yeah. We would have mongoose or other wildlife wander through because of the valley foliage in the back. There were so many weird things happening in my parents' house. I'm telling you, there's just energy there. Almost everyone in the house experienced something. But most of the weird things happened to me. So this first story is titled The Presence in My Bedroom, which already freaks me out because I think people staring at you while you're sleeping is creepy.
I do it to her all the time. She doesn't even know.
What the fuck?
It's like that scene in Paranormal Activity where like the chick gets up and like stands next to him on the side of the bed for like 3 hours. I do that, but I'm just waiting for her to wake up, hoping she'll freak out. She never does.
You have scary stare eyes.
Do I?
Yeah, like when you do your face where you look like you're staring.
I can't do it right now.
I hate it.
I'm smiling too much.
I hate it. In the middle of the night, I woke up and I couldn't move my arms or my legs, and my chest felt as though it was being compressed to the point where I could hardly breathe. Then a deep, raspy voice said, "Are you alone?" Wait, hold on. Wait.
This.
Are you alone?
That's pretty good.
I don't have a deep voice, but I said no.
You want me to try it?
Yeah. Why not?
Are you alone?
Fuck you. You're the worst.
Are you alone?
That was not bad.
All right, cool.
I said no, and I knew that I needed to get out of there, but I was still being pressed to my bed. I kept trying to sit up, wiggle out, but I couldn't move. At some point, I was finally able to roll out of bed. Once I hit the floor, I tried to run for my door, but as soon as I touched the doorknob, a force flung me back, and I landed on my butt 5 feet from the door. That's horrifying.
This is terrifying.
It's like some poltergeist shit.
Seriously.
I then crawled towards my door and reached for the knob again. Somehow, I was able to get the door open. I ran to the living room where my mom was, and upon seeing me, she asked what was wrong. I couldn't speak at first or catch my breath from working so hard to get out of my room. I was sweating, shaking, panting, and my heart was beating a mile a minute. I told her what happened, and she immediately put a rosary around my neck and started saying the Our Father prayer. I stayed in the living room to calm down and fall back asleep so that I would be carried back to bed. I did not want to go back into my room that night on my own volition.
Fuck yeah, I'd be like, I'm not sleeping in that room ever again.
I went to Catholic school, obviously.
How is that obvious?
If you've been with us for a long time, you know I've gone.
If
to
you
Catholic
recall,
school.
I
Yeah.
think it's the thing Robin's trying
yeah, that's
to
what
say.
I mean. But that, so the Our Father prayer, things like that. I've gone on missions to different islands before.
You were a missionary?
I mean, they have it's not necessarily like a mission. We went on like a trip to one of the other islands. I wish I remembered which one it was. I think it's Molokai, maybe. It's one of the other islands where there was like where they kept all of the leprosy patients.
Okay.
During
You're trying to convert
old...
lepers? Is that what you're telling me?
No. But it was like something where we went to all these different churches there. So the island that they used to keep all the lepers at, there's like a whole bunch of churches, and we went to all the different churches and stuff there. And
so you weren't trying to convert anyone?
We didn't try to convert anyone.
So it was more like a pilgrimage. You were a pilgrim.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
That was pretty cool. But so like that's what that kind of the rosary, things like that. That's what that reminds me of, is like going through all of that.
Great.
When I used to live in Hawaii, because that's where I went.
It reminds me a lot of one of Mondo's stories that I don't know if he actually told it in the podcast, that he told me privately and decided not to share. I think just a similar situation where something very creepy happened. He had an older relative there. And they used rosary beads and they said a prayer, to like combat whatever was going on. So I think that's a pretty common reaction for folks who are, deeply religious, seeing something terrifying or supernatural happen, is to be like, this is the main arrow I got in my quiver and I'm about to fire this shit off to try and prevent this from whatever's happening. So definitely terrifying. And we have 3 more stories to go.
Yeah.
So,
but it's terrifying. This one scares me just because, like, I feel it, you know? Being from Hawaii, I just feel it.
right on. So, before we get to the next ones, though, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And we're back. So I have 2 of these stories that I'm going to read. I'm going to pass it off to Robin. The first one of mine and the second one of the email is called The Ghost in the Hallway. And it goes like this. I attended a private school from 1st to 12th grade in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
The private school I went to for my elementary years was so small it didn't even have a cafeteria. So we always brought lunch from home. Sack lunch. Being the oldest daughter, I was always in charge of making the lunches for myself and my siblings. Also, private schools do not have a school bus system in Hawaii, so parents had to drop you off. Thus, we all had to wake up early in order to do all the tasks needed to get ready for school. This included showering, making lunches, etc. And when there's only one shower for 6 people, that means getting up really early. Sometimes getting up that early meant the sun had not risen yet. One early morning, I was in the kitchen making the lunches, and the only lights on in the house were the kitchen lights and my parents' bedroom light down the hall. All my other siblings were still sleeping, and the hallway lights were off. This hallway connected the living room to all the bedrooms, including my parents'. The living room lights were also off at this time. As I was making the sandwiches in the kitchen, I noticed someone wearing pink walking through the hallway towards the living room. My mom owns pink PJs and often wears them, so I thought it was her. I called out to her because I wanted to ask her a question, but she didn't answer me. I called again, and still no answer. I was getting annoyed, so I walked out from the kitchen to the living room to talk to her, but the lights were still off in the living room and there was no one there. So I went to her room thinking, I know she didn't walk back down the hall, so where is she? I found her in her room, sitting at her vanity, putting on her makeup. I asked her why she didn't answer me. She said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I called you when you walked past me through the hall to the living room, but you didn't answer." She said, "I haven't left here." Then I noticed she was wearing white.
Ooh, that's creepy.
That is super fucking creepy.
I feel like I see stuff all the time, like out of the corner of my eye. But it's like, you know, it's like how you're like, I swear I saw someone walk into the closet just now. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There was a moment where I thought I saw someone walking down the hallway, and then Robin came in from a different door, and I was just like, I fucking thought you were over there, and then you came in, and it freaked me out. I just assume it's my mind playing tricks on me.
Yeah, that's what I always put it off to. My eyes are just like tripping.
I'm just so disrespectful to myself when stuff like that happens. Now, it could literally be a ghost trying to make contact with him. I'm like, I'm just such a stupid asshole, and I just like go back on with my day. So it's probably not that though. It's probably me being a stupid asshole. All right, going to move on to the next one. And this one is The Shadow in the Shower Curtain. This one sounds like Psycho. I don't know if anyone's ever seen Psycho, but the shower curtain scene
watch
is
Psycho
very...
anymore?
I mean, in like Filmlit probably. I doubt anyone watches it for funsies, but I mean, it's a good movie. All right, The Shadow in the Shower Curtain. As I mentioned before, we only had one bathroom with a shower for 6 people. So a lot of times when someone is in the bathrooms, others would barge in because they needed something. For example, if someone is in the shower, others may walk in to use the toilet, brush their teeth, or blow dry their hair.
That makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I understand it.
I understand it, but...
I think our first house, we only had one bathroom. We might have had 2. I'm trying to think back because my memory is very, very foggy about that. But I just remember like needing to use the bathroom and someone being in there and just being like, I'm just going to fucking go. I'm going to pick this lock and go in there and just go. Like, and they can deal with the smell afterwards. So, yeah, it's rough when you have 6 people for one. I'm going to keep going. Because of all the other weird encounters, I usually played music loudly while I showered in hopes that it would distract my mind. I would not manifest it by thinking about it.
Okay.
That makes sense. One night, as I was showering to get ready to go out with friends, I saw a shadow on the shower curtain. The same type you would see when someone is standing in front of it.
So okay. If this shadow is standing there just staring, that's creepy.
Yeah. At the time, I thought it strange that I didn't hear the door open, but assumed that my loud music had drowned out the sound. The shadow looked like a female with long hair that went past their butt.
No.
My sister had hair that length, and so did many other girls in Hawaii, including the original Islanders.
Okay.
Anyway, since I assumed it was her, she is the only one in the house with hair that length, I was annoyed and said, "Get out! I'm taking a shower!" It's my read. I hope it was accurate. However, there was no answer, and instead I saw the shadow coming closer to the shower.
That's like something out of a horror
I
movie.
would punch that fucking shower curtain, because if it is your sibling trying to fuck with you, you punch him like right in the chest, like back the fuck up. All right, I knew this because the shadow was getting larger on the curtain. I kept saying get out, but it kept moving closer. So then I whipped open the curtains to cuss her out. When I did, I saw that the bathroom door was closed and there was no one there. I quickly rinsed off and left the bathroom as quickly as possible. That one is super terrifying for sure.
No.
Yeah. I would have freaked the fuck out. I would have tried to like do the punch to the shower curtain, seen there was nothing there, pulled it back, had there be nothing, been like, oh hell no, like it's a demon, and just rinsed off and got the fuck out of there the same as you did. So
yep.
Smart move.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to be turning it back over to Robin for the last part of this email and the last part of the show.
So final story of the episode. It's pretty long. I'm excited. It looks like it has, ancient Hawaiian vibes on it. So.
It's titled The Offerings.
Yeah.
And she's right. It appears long, strong. It seems down to get the friction off.
Stop. Okay. So it begins. One day, we told our neighbor, who is Hawaiian, what had been going on. Since there's been a lot of hauntings, a lot of scary stuff. We told her of all these strange occurrences. We told her we had the house blessed by the Catholic priest. That didn't help. So she told us to call her friend who was a psychic. My family was a bit hesitant because there were so many superstitions and ghost stories in Hawaii that it was hard to know when someone was legit or just scamming you. I totally, absolutely get that.
I would assume I was being scammed regardless of what was said, for sure.
A few days later, my mom called the so-called psychic. As soon as the psychic answered the phone, she immediately began telling my mom that we have a family buried under the back left corner of the property. This happened to be right under my bedroom.
That's fucked up.
What the fuck?
Maybe they literally just looked up like, oh, your house is literally built in a graveyard.
The psychic said that the father, mother, and daughter are buried there. I don't remember why they are there, but they are not happy that we built over their grave. So the psychic said we had to give a peace offering. She said we needed to acquire fresh pork, fish, and taro.
She gives you a whole recipe, like, just bring it to my house. It'll work. Like, I know you're supposed to give it to them, but like, if you give it to me, I'll tell them it was. Just make sure, like, it's delicious.
We needed to make 3 bundles, one each for the father, mother, and child. Each had to be wrapped in exactly 3 tea leaves. We had to prepare them a certain way, too. Then we had to lay them in a row in the back corner of the property at sunset. We had to say a prayer to bless them and to ask for forgiveness. I totally get this as somebody who grew up in a superstitious family. Different things require different rituals and offerings and things that you have to do. I think when I was really sick when I was a kid, my mom did something. When she couldn't sell her house in Texas, she went to somebody who made her do something.
It's not that crazy. Like, we've heard stories about people like burying crosses in the front yard or whatever, like a specific type of like religious piece of memorabilia that's supposed to help you like move on or something like that. So there's a lot of different things through different cultures that are specific to stuff like that. So
yeah, we were pretty skeptical that this would work, but we were also amazed at how much this person knew with one phone call. I remember my mom telling me that she didn't get a chance to even say hi or introduce who she was. The woman on the other side of the call knew why she was calling and knew everything about our property. She knew the bedroom that was over the burial area was an add-on to the original house, and this is why weird things were only happening now. She also knew that the corner of the property always had trouble growing things. Every place else on the property flourished with grass, flowers, plants, even weeds, but this corner was just dirt and one tiny tree that never bore fruit. It was just freaky, but we were still not quite convinced. However, we decided to still do what she had suggested because we had nothing else to lose.
Yeah, skeptical, but reasonable. Like, what do we have to lose? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. So the next day, we bought all the items and wrapped them in the tea leaves. The tea leaves had to be laid overlapping to make a star, quote-unquote star, as specified by the psychic. We put the pork, fish, and taro in the middle and gathered the ends to tie them so it looked like a pouch or laulau, which is literally like anytime we go to a Hawaiian restaurant, barbecue, anything, I always see if they have laulau because not every place does, but I always want it. That's like always my thing. So good. But larger to hold all the items. We laid each pouch side by side in a straight row between the one large rock in that part of the property and the tiny tree at sunset. A few days later, my neighbor asked if we checked on the pouches. I said no, but let's go look now. We went through the house to the back rooms that were closest to where we lay the offerings. We opened the window to peek at them, and I was 100% sure I would see the tea leaves shredded up by the wildlife, which were stray cats, mongoose, rats, etc., in disarray or with a hole ripped into them to get to the food. But when we looked, we saw all the tea leaves laid out side by side in a row. I have chills, dog.
That's crazy.
Nice and neatly. The food was gone and the tea leaves were intact. They were not shredded or strewn around in a mess. Instead, they looked as though someone had opened them and removed the contents. My neighbor and I quickly looked at each other and screamed. We got the hell out of there. We ran back to the front of the house screaming. Then we questioned everyone, thinking someone must have gone there and untied the leaves and took out the food, playing a sick joke on us. But everyone said no, and everyone took their own look and was scared too. The encounters seemed to stop after this. At least I thought they did. I didn't want to take any chances, so I chose not to be in that room. I moved out of it and switched with my older brother. After my older brother and I had moved out of the house, my younger brother moved into that room. Years later, my siblings and I reminisced of those days. I asked if they ever saw or experienced anything more after we made the offerings. They both told me that when they lived in that room, they both were visited by the ghost of the child.
What?
They felt her hands on their arms, but it was not malicious. Instead, it was like she was just saying hi. So the ghosts remain, but at least they aren't angry anymore. Hope you enjoyed, and sorry if it was long. Trash Panda 17's mom.
Well, thank you so much, Trash Panda 17's mom, for sending that in. It was super long, but very, very good.
That story gave me chills for sure. Because, damn, that's scary.
It reminds me a lot of some of the stories my dad shared with me, like the stuff that he went through growing up, and like so the contacting a psychic, trying to figure out what you can do to like prevent stuff like that from happening for sure. So
yeah, and I grew up with offerings on death days and things like that, so I'm used to that concept and that idea. But actually going and checking and seeing that it looks like someone unfolded all the tea leaves is terrifying.
Yeah. Unless someone actually went and did that, like I'm sure a person could do that, but you would have had to like not notice it. They would have had to lie to your face and be honest about it and do it super, super sneaky.
Yeah.
So it's, and the fact that the activity stopped after that is pretty telling. Stopped-ish for sure. But either way, thank you so much for sending in those stories. They were fantastic. I think at the beginning you said this isn't all of them, so send the rest.
Yeah.
We want to know. But yeah, good stuff. All right, so that is everything we have for this particular episode 199 of Storytime. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. If you have any stories you would like to share with us, please email storytime@scarish.com or go to our website, scarish.com, click on Contact Us, fill out that form. It does come directly to us. And you can hit us up on our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter, or whatever the fuck it's called now, is @scarishpodcast. It's called X, like X-Men. If you tweet you're an X-Man or an X-Woman or an X-whatever.
It's a Zeet.
I fucking hate him so much. Anyways, @scarishpodcast for Twitter or whatever it's called now, and then @scarishpod for Twitter, @scarishpodcast for Instagram, which is still just fucking called Instagram, thank Christ.
The smart thing about Twitter's advertising is like you tweet because it's a bird. The logo for Twitter is a bird.
Yeah,
so
now
you tweet.
Who knows what's called now. We also have a Threads. If you want to follow us on Threads, that's a thing. You can go over and it's @scarishpodcast or @scarishpod, one of the two over there. I don't think many people are using it. We all just made accounts to be like, fuck you, Elon. And then we were just like,
I haven't made a Threads account.
You're stupid. Anyways, I mean, if you don't want to make one, don't make one. But if you have one, we should have ours up and running. Anytime a new social media pops up, I try and reserve all of them for Scarish, Twat to Twat, the movie podcast we still haven't fucking started, and Hear Us Out Network, which is essentially dead at this point. So they all exist, or they should, and then I have my own. So I tweeted something hilarious the other day. So, or excuse me, it's not tweet.
Was
I
it
threaded
hilarious?
It was pretty funny. Someone complained. We were like, I looked at some like video on Instagram, and it was Las Vegas, and someone was like, I hate Las Vegas. That city smells like shit. And someone commented on, they're like, where did you go that smelled? I've lived here for like my whole life, and it doesn't smell. And I was like, I mean, I've lived in a lot of cities in my life, and this one does not smell at all.
Shit.
Yeah, we've been to New York. New York smells like piss in certain places. And so I followed this particular interaction between these two folks on Instagram, and the guy was saying like, I mean, I've stayed at the Caesars, And one time I stayed in like old downtown, and they're just like, so the Strip, you stayed at the Strip, which is just filled with tourists and drunk people, and you're wondering why you might have smelled something bad. And so what I commented on it to contribute was like, you saying Las Vegas smells like shit when only having visited the Strip is like me coming to your house and saying your house smells like shit, but I only ever went into your bathroom and I was the one that took the shit. And I was like, I'm so funny. I'm putting this on Threads.
Oh,
and
my God.
no one saw it because no one uses Threads. But I didn't check my post on Instagram to see if anyone liked it. I don't know how to do that. I'm not an Instagrammer or a grammar or whatever you call them. Anyways, this was episode 199 of Storytime. We hope you liked it. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us because we're hilarious, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryish-podcast. Tiers start at $1. You can also go to coffee, ko-fi.com /scaryish-podcast. And those are one-time donations.
Indeed. Thank you so much to everyone who watches live, everyone who listens after the fact, everyone who supports us in all the ways you folks do, even if it's silently from the shadows. We feel it in a non-creepy way, and we appreciate you.
I hope it's a non-creepy way. Please don't follow us in a creepy way.
Yeah, please don't be creeps, but I think so far, so good. So that's everything we got. Robin, why don't you go ahead and sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.